Today we are busting through blocks. Here we go.
My happiness is right where I left it. I can remember when the simplest was all I wanted.
Hello everyone and welcome to Freedom Friday, where you learn how to free yourself and live your dreams. I'm Darienne from Darienne Empire. I need to stop saying DariAwaken.com because even though I'm still going to own DariAwaken.com, I'm transitioning it to Darienne Empire, and I always babble in the beginning of these. But this is where you learn how to free yourself and live your dreams. Did I say that already? I think I did. Welcome to Freedom Friday. So a while back I got a question, and I love doing Q&As. I got a question about busting through the blocks, blocking you from manifesting your desires. I'm not gonna name the person who questioned me on this one because I got a lot of questions about this. And I think that this was something for me. This is why, you know, I urge, if anybody follows me on Facebook, I've done like a mini blog about this on my Facebook as I go on my spiritual rants here and there. When you get a coach, you really want to get somebody that's been in the trenches with you, because it's so easy. And I know a lot of coaches, and God bless them all, literally. God bless them all. I really mean that sincerely. Not literally, sincerely. There's a lot of coaches out there that really haven't been through an insane amount of things in life, and they can't really coach someone that has. And I really target you guys who have been in the motherfucking trenches. You've been through a lot of shit. You are really trying to overcome, you know, those deep-seated beliefs that you're not worthy, that, you know, money is bad, that, you know, you're just a sexual being, or maybe you've had some sort of sexual traumas that give you this idea about men, or who you are as a woman, or who you are as a man. And there's these, it just seems like mountains in between you and your desires. And I've been through quite a bit, as you guys know. If you've been watching me, I've been in the trenches with you. I've had the sexual traumas, I've had the drug addictions, the alcohol addictions, the alcoholic family members. I've been to hell and back. Teen pregnancy, lost my daughter's father to suicide, deep depression for many years. You guys know. So there's one way, and really only one way, that I have learned to bust through those blocks. There are many different ways to do it, but all of those different modalities are pointing into one direction, and that direction is to change your story. So you've been living with this story. Oh my God, how many of us are just living with this story? How many people have you, I mean, come on, there's a lot of empaths here and that follow me, all my rockin' empaths. How many of you have come across many people that totally identify with their story, and every time you talk to them, they're like, you know, my mom, you know, she never told me I was pretty, so like I don't wear makeup and I don't put on dresses because I feel like shit. And it's like every single thing that you hear come out of this person's mouth, it's all about past shit that happened to them. It's all about their story. It's all about, they're completely defining themselves and affirming it through talking about it. And I mean, even a lot of my spiritual friends do this, and I was guilty of this, like over analyzing everything that I have fucking been through and be like, okay, well, this is why I'm like this, and this is why I'm like this, And that's the reason I have that issue. And then you're just like, you're just stuck in this like bowl of spaghetti issues. All intertwined together, and you think your job is to like pick through each one and then heal it. And like, that's what we're all here to do. And in a lot of ways, that is effective, doing that. But there comes a point when you start to be in this vicious cycle of telling your fucking story so much that you are reiterating it, that you are literally getting yourself stuck in your story. You are creating the mountain. So one thing I would say is stop fucking telling yourself that story. Stop the story. Create a new story. And I'll tell you, there are tons of ways to create a new story about yourself. But the way I was able to free myself of a lot of blocks, and I did it the way, I used to do it the way that I spoke of, and still I sometimes do, you know, if I find an issue, I'll do some EFT and I'll tap on it. But I've really learned nowadays to just decide, because I've done so many modalities, I've done so many exercises with this, that I can so much more easily decide to change my story and start telling myself a new story. And it's so interesting. I was sort of rehearsing this video to myself last night, and I literally just talked to myself for like 3 hours straight, but in my mind I'm talking to you guys, and I think I've done that my whole life. But now I got a camera and y'all are seeing me. But anyway, so I don't even remember what I was just saying, but I was talking to myself and rehearsing. And then what I realized was one of the most defining stories for myself in my entire life was when I was in kindergarten and I was sexually violated again and again and again, all throughout kindergarten, by one of my peer students that sat at the same table with me. And it was a boy, and I got very, there was another little boy that sat with me that was very inappropriate, would like lick his lips at me and play footsies with me. But the other boy would grab my private parts every time I walked past him. Every time I stood up, he would just grab my private parts, and it felt very violating to me, for obvious reasons. And I went to my parents and told them. I was 5 years old. I mean, think about it. We're just so innocent. And what had happened was the principal had handled it and told me he had handled it. They separated us. They never told us to like sit down and talk about it. And then I went back to school. They did not remove me from the boy. We still sat at the same table, and he still continued to do it. He just bitched at me for it. And he was like, you know, blaming me. So then I felt really bad, like, oh, okay. So now after that, it was like, okay, well now I got to keep his dirty little secret, and he's still touching me, and I'm still being violated. And I developed so many core beliefs surrounding this one event. You know, the core belief that I have no control over my body, that men control my body, that I cannot trust my peers, men specifically. I can't trust my authority, because I really had a big issue with authority. I mean, I would curse out teachers in high school and shit because I had such an issue from my principal and my teachers and even my parents that I felt really let me down at the time. And I developed, and the whole dirty little secret thing, and I kept this vibration with me. I kept these beliefs, and so that vibration continued to create more of the same shit. As I became a teenager, I was sexually abused by a lot of my peers. A lot of the men that I dated, or the boys that I dated, forced me to do things I didn't want to do because I thought I didn't have a choice. I had this deep-seated belief that I had no control of my body and that men controlled my body more than I did, and there was that fear I lived with, and it was just insane. And when I was talking to myself last night, I realized that for the first time, only since recently, I feel really free of that story. And what I did was I just stopped telling myself the story that it was painful. And really, I think I went back to it quite often, and I kind of debunked a lot of the shit that went on in there. I did a lot of EFT on that over the years. I did a lot of EFT is emotional freedom techniques, where you do tapping. So look that up. Definitely, there's lots of amazing videos on YouTube. I've done some. But I really just started to tell myself a different story. I started to realize that, you know, yes, that's one moment that happened to me in my life, but I didn't have to let it define me. And it's not happening anymore. This is one of the biggest things that I had to really convince myself, and I still sometimes, you know, there's so many deep core beliefs that we have, we don't even realize is running our lives. So I sort of, you know, I looked at the fact that there are so many other things that have happened to me in my life, and I just allowed that moment to set precedent, and I allowed it to really make me who I was. And it literally formed all of these other recurring incidences of being raped and sexually abused continuously by numerous men. And I'm not saying that it was my fault, but it was fucking my fault that I was holding that vibration. It wasn't my fault that these men touched me, yada, yada, yada. You know, I just don't, it's funny the way I feel like I'm talking about it now. I don't feel like a victim at all. Not one bit. I have literally been physically forced into sexual acts with a man. And I do not feel like a victim because I know now the power that I had to control my vibration, the power that I had to stop giving so much power to that one fucking incident that happened to me when I was 5 years old. And you know what? In my mind, it probably happened the entire year. I mean, in my mind, it happened the entire year, but it probably didn't even happen that way. It's just the way I formed it. And I'm still holding that thought, that perception of a 5-year-old. We don't, you know, if I look back on that now and I really see it the way it went, it probably did not happen the way I remember it. We just remember bits and pieces. And I noticed that with my daughter. Sometimes she'll remember things from years ago and I'm like, that's not how that happened at all. And we all have our own perspectives and things like that. So as I mentioned, one of the ways that I have used to change my fucking story is EFT. Another one is just stop telling the fucking story. When I was seeing a therapist regularly, well, when I was seeing a therapist at all, I remember I used to, before I went into her, think of all the terrible things that happened to me that week, so that I could go in and discuss them with her. And we would talk about my depression and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And there's a difference between talking to release and then just fucking reiterating again and again and again and again and again and getting stuck in a vicious cycle of telling your story, a story that doesn't serve you at all. I'm trying not to curse as much as I am cursed because I realize I'm cursing a lot, but I'm just in a cursing mood today. But that was the thing, was that I realized that I was fueling my depression by continuing to talk about it. And it got to the point where I got sick of hearing myself talk about depression. Like, can we talk about something else? anything else. And when you're going to a therapist, you think, okay, I go to a therapist to deal with my depression. And so when I go to my therapist, I talk about depression. One of the other things that I did with my therapist is at that moment I said, and I really want you guys, if you're in therapy and if you're suffering with depression, I hope to God that you are in therapy. It's definitely something that is really imperative when, you know, there's those moments that we can't really help ourselves, when we're deep in a depression and we don't have the tools that we need. And we really need to practice those tools. So it's always good to have that help. It's what I talked about last week in stopping your depression in its tracks. So what I want you to do, another thing that you can do to start changing your story, one, by stop telling it, but if you are in therapy, you can take control of your therapy sessions. You don't have to go in and allow your therapist to just lead the way. At first, you may need to do that, but it got to a point where I needed to go into my therapist and I said, listen, Joyce, her name was Joyce, coincidentally. She was my angel therapist. And I said, listen, I really am sick of talking about depression. I want to talk about good stuff. I want to talk about positive things. I took control of my own therapy sessions because they're for me. And she's really there to serve that purpose and to serve in helping me get out of my depression. So we can help one another that way. Yeah, so those are really, I think, just living in the moment and realizing that the past can only happen right now if you fuel it with your thoughts. And I really think that EFT is a big one. I just started doing focus wheels. Focus wheels are fucking awesome. Focus wheels from Abraham Hicks. I think I'm gonna do a whole video on how to do a focus wheel and why it's so effective, because I really love doing focus wheels. So look up the focus wheels. But that's really, I know I can't really give you a specific answer as to how to clear your blocks because there are so many ways to do it. But in the end, it's all about taking back your own power and realizing that the thoughts that you are having right now in this moment, whether they're thoughts about the past, the future, or what's happening right now, those thoughts are in your vibration right now. And those thoughts are controlling your vibrational frequency, thus attracting what is coming to you right in this moment. So even if something happened in the past, if it negatively affected you and you are still thinking about it in the present moment, then you are still attracting the same shit, just as I was still attracting men that were going to not listen to me when I said no, that were not going to respect me. I just repeated the same thing over and over and over again, and I don't want you guys to do the same. So it's really about taking back that power and realizing that your mind is creating everything. And when you can't really get a control of your mind, that EFT is freaking amazing. And just to give you a really quick, easy thing with the EFT, if you don't know anything about EFT and you start thinking about something that makes you feel like crap, all you have to do is start tapping the tapping points and say, this makes me feel like crap. 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 And just keep tapping and start talking about the reasons why it makes you feel crap. Makes you feel like crap. It makes me feel like crap because yada, 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 yada. And then start to shift it. Start to say things like, you know, well, there have been other times, I mean, it depends on the situation, I guess. But you start to think about, like, okay, there have been other times when this happened and I didn't feel like crap. And I like to think about those moments. And I'm going to release this feeling of feeling like crap, you know? Doing things like journaling, getting it off your chest is really big. And then stop fucking talking about it is really, really the best that I can tell you. So if you want to get a little bit more specific, definitely ask me some questions in the comments below. Join the inspiration conversation. And I may do a Q&A video for you if you want to get a little bit more specific on how to deal with certain blocks. There's lots of blocks. There's money blocks. There's, you know, that worthiness block. There's all kinds of blocks. Blocking yourself to the love of your life, blocking yourself to specific people. That's another thing somebody asked me a question about. I'm probably going to make a video about. Yeah, so ask me any questions you have and I will answer them probably in a video. Other than that, join me all throughout social media at Darienne Empire and subscribe to these videos and you will get one every single Friday. Share them with your friends. Join the Rockin' Empath Facebook group if you are an empath and want to be a rockin' empath. And I think that's it. And I'll see you guys next week. I love y'all. All right, bye-bye.